everybody, it's Dale again with Fallstown Racing. I've had a good day. I hope you've had a great day. And on this video, last video I talked about making the list and making the budget and wanting to trim it down and stuff, but I never really talked too much about the actual parts of the car. And I know I had some people actually tell me that, they're kind of curious about what parts. So I got my handy little laser pointer here, and I got some lights on the car, and I'm going to be able to show you guys what I was kind of looking at and what I was kind of talking about. The first place we're going to look at, of course, is always looking at the wheels and tires. Wheels and tires, we'll look at there first. We have to run American Racer G60 series tires on an 8-inch rim, and my tires are kind of old. I do have some better tires though. In fact, I actually moved this tire here to the front, which is a far better tire. Definitely a lot softer, definitely a better durometer of softness, so it'll stick to the track better and help me turn. Some of the other tires again are a little bit harder compounds, so they'll work on certain track conditions, but on a lot of them that we go against, like a lot of tacky, wet, damp type tracks, they won't stick very well. They won't get enough grip, but the softer durometers will. The next thing I was looking at was the actual shocks, and right here, I'll zoom in here a little bit. Right here, this part right here, you see the green little laser there. That part right there, that whole tube there, is the shock. And I actually noticed that on the other side, the shock shaft was bent. And that's when I talked about not wanting to repair them, because the shaft itself is almost the price of a whole new shock. So it really doesn't make sense of, again, repairing it if it's going to cost the same amount or as close to a new shock. But yeah, the shaft was actually bent. And so I'm just going to replace the shocks, because I really don't know the condition of these shocks. They were kind of used when I got them, and I just want to make sure that they're good. I mean, because these are what helps control the car in the turns, and it's the first thing to hit the turn. So I want to make sure they're good. Next, I was actually looking at the rear axle, the rear end as it was, and actually got it all lit up underneath here, so y'all be able to see it pretty clearly. Now it's going to figure out how to get you in there. Actually, if you look in there, you'll see the blue housing there. And that blue housing is the center section, or the pumpkin. And that whole section actually comes out and has the gear, and it holds the ring pinion and gear ring assembly that does the gearing for the track. Because you have to gear each car differently depending upon the size of the track. So you'll get to the right RPM range you're looking at. And that is usually anywhere between, I think most guys have anywhere from 7,000 RPM chips to about 7,800 RPM chips. Again, really depends on the motor and your setup and how big the track is. And it really depends upon what ratios you run. Most guys usually stick around to about the same ratio. This ratio I have is actually lower than what I need. Two tracks that I'm going to be running at are pretty big tracks, and I do not need this lower gear at all. And set y'all up right there. But yeah, it's a lot lower than what I need, and yeah. Don't know what else to say there. But yeah, I looked at the gear and found out I'm going to have to probably find a different gear ratio for the track I'm running at. I also looked at shocks back here. The season, not last season, but the season before last, we were actually having a problem of bending shocks in the rear of the car. Not so much of a problem now. Me and my father actually started making some measurements. We started checking out some stuff, and the chassis was used. It was used when I got it. It had probably been to a couple people before I got it. And I think a couple of them may have made some changes that weren't making the shocks very happy. And we actually were bending shocks quite a bit. So we got that under control now. I'm still going to have to probably replace this passenger side shock, because it was one of the last ones that got bent. and I had to just throw another shock in there to finish the season, and it's really not rated for this passenger side rear of the car. So I'm gonna have to get a new shock there to make sure the balance of the shocks is there. Next up, the part that I was looking at was the radiator. The radiator, I was double checking to make sure there were no leaks. I was making sure that there were no leaks coming off the front of the water pump, and just double checking all the motor parts. That light's a little bright right there, but I don't know if y'all can see that. But this part right in here, actually the whole silver part there, that's right in front of that fan, that's the radiator. That's the aluminum radiator. These things over a period of time get hot and cold, hot and cold, hot and cold. They can start separating at seams, and when they separate, they'll actually start leaking. And then if they get really cold or hot all of a sudden one time, it can actually pop, and you can actually look up some videos on that. It's not pretty. Another thing I was looking at, which was right here, this is the fuel pump. Really have to check the fuel pump to make sure, again, there's no leaks. Also checking the flange, the mounting on the fuel pump, make sure there's no cracks. Make sure there's no cracks around where the fittings go in, because over a period of time all the vibrations and shaking and stuff could end up causing some wear marks, and also start causing some cracks and stuff to form, which will definitely not be good if the fuel pump breaks and comes loose. That's just the fire waiting to happen. And other things I kind of look at in the car, again, safety. As you see, my belt's right here. And yes, I do shop at Speedway. I shop literally everywhere I can find the part cheapest is where I usually buy it. Because again, my budget tells me so. But yeah, these are the belts. Those are the belts right here. And right around these edges are these little metal flanges that are up in here. And down in here, you see all these little metal flanges. Right around these edges where they wrap around the flange, they can tear and fray. And the stitching can come loose. And that's not a good sign. I did check these. These are actually good. So plus, I don't have to replace these this year. I also checked the fire extinguisher right here. Still good. Still being used, or capable of being used, which is a plus. If you notice, the fuel tank, the fuel cell is a little beat up. It's definitely showing its age, but there are no cracks, there are no rust holes, there are no, real issues with the tank. It's just it's losing its paint. So I think we're going to be good for it for one more season. I don't think there's going to be an issue with it. If I do see a rust spot or a crack, it's very important that it stays secure. So that's going to be top priority to get that secure if there's a rust hole or some issue with it. And it would definitely be addressed quickly. But I thoroughly inspected it top and bottom. No signs of any rust holes, no signs of any deterioration in the metal. So I think we're going to be good. It's just the paint chipping off. I might actually try to pull that out when I'm getting about ready to put the body on. I might even paint it. Next part I looked at was I checked all the filters. I don't know how well you can see that little green light right there. But yeah, that part right there. The fuel filter, this part right here, that little cylinder looking thing, there's actually a filter inside that. And that's actually a fuel filter. And the fuel filters you need to check, especially if you're running any kind of like methanol or any kind of alcohol, you want to check those quite regularly. The jets on the alcohol carbs are really big, and they can really get some dirt and some crust and all kinds of little nasty stuff down in there if you don't watch, what kind of fuel you're getting and who you're getting it from. Actually, the bumpers right here, as you can tell, it's got some good scratch marks and stuff from where the cables and chains and stuff were pulling on it, because I have a winch on my trailer, so it pulls it up. And I usually have a strap, but I had to use it for the rear of the car to hold it down. And so we had to chain up the front. But that's fine. That's just paint. I'll just paint that right back up, so we're going to be good there. The rear bumper, about the same. I really kind of wanted to replace it, but you know, it's still a good bumper. I mean, it's straight. It's really nice. I mean, I don't know how well y'all can see it there, but yeah, I mean, it's still a good bumper. And yeah, I mean, it's just needs to be painted up and touched up and you know, cleaned back up. A lot of the stuff that I'm probably going to be replacing is like the starter. I don't know if I can get a good picture of the starter or not, but right here, this is the solenoid, and right below it, this thing right down here is the starter. As you can tell, it's got some age to it, and it is definitely starting to show signs of dragging and stuff, and the battery's new, and it's starting to show a little sign of drag, so it's definitely going to have to be either rebuilt or replaced. And I think I went ahead and decided to go ahead and replace it and eventually rebuild this one for a backup. So yeah, it's not that bad. It's not that hard. They're not that expensive, thank goodness. But yeah, it's just, you know, some of the routine stuff. I haven't talked much about the motor. The motor really only ran one full season, and I've taken really good care of it. We changed the oil regularly, and no signs of any metal shavings or anything, and so it should be really good. Like I said, I was only able to run a handful of races last season. I think like 3 or 4, and 2 of those I didn't even get to finish because the car wasn't handling right, and I don't take it out on the track if it's not handling right because I don't want to get anybody's way or risk tearing up anybody's stuff, including mine. In the next video or so, if y'all want, you can let me know in the comments below. I'll get in and talk about the motor a little bit more, if y'all really want to know about that. And then, because I'm not going to have to replace anything on the motor, maybe besides like spark plug wires, because you know I can't remember exactly how old these are, and I don't like hanging them around too long if they're old, because they do wear out. They don't exactly push the power through like they normally would, or allow enough power to go through sometimes. So I would definitely want to take a look at that and those wires. But other than that, the motor's pretty sound. If that goes, though, that's going to be a big blow to the budget. And that's going to take me a little while to recuperate. So that's why I always try to do my best to take care of the motors. Let's see. Yeah, but I mean, that's just a real quick look over some of the things that I was looking at on the list. And some of the quick things I can kind of show y'all. Some of this stuff is so far underneath there, I really can't really get y'all good pictures, or it's really hard for me to explain, to be honest with you. Good news on a front note here in Wichita, the racetrack locally finally sold, so traveling might actually be a lot less, so that's going to help the budget, and it'll be a lot easier on a lot of the guys around here. You know, we'd have to drive another hour and a half to 2 hours away to just to race and to do what we love to do, which we don't mind doing that, but it saves money, you know, the gas and time and stuff getting down there, where we can be right here within like 30-40 minutes away and be able to have fun and be able to get home in a decent time. And that's always a plus for us and our families. And you know, we look at stuff like that all the time. And but you know, if we have to, I ain't afraid. I will drive. I'll go 2 hours if I have to be able to race. I love to race. And I mean, I might not be able to race weekly, but I'll be out there quite often. So yeah, you'll definitely catch me out somewhere. But anyways, I want to thank you guys again for watching. Please hit the subscribe if you want to come along and enjoy the ride. And always, man, just have fun and y'all be safe. Thank y'all again. Have a good night. Bye.
Give me fuel, give me fire, give me that which I desire. Ooh.